Hey, everybody. I just wanted to share with you guys a video from my book launch. And for those who are not able to attend the book launch, here is an opportunity for you to get to hear the conversations you had at the book launch. I know that it took over a year for the book launch to happen, and it is because COVID-19 happened. It's been over 1 year since I published the book. The launch was supposed to happen last year, around March last year, but COVID happened and disrupted everything and pushed everything beyond my control, anybody's control. But I thought to myself, it's better late than never, and I was able to do the book launch a couple of weeks ago. And so I thought I should share the video with those of you who are not able to attend the launch. And the book launch was in collaboration with Exclusive Books. I felt very honored and very blessed to be on their platform, and I just wanted to share this moment with you guys. And for those of you that have been following my journey, or for those that haven't heard my story, you will get to hear some of the background stories, at the launch, some of the conversations we had, the stories behind the stories, and how it all happened, and what led to me writing the book, and what put me on the path in which I am now, and conversations about technology generally and how it's affecting work and life, and how we can align ourselves as people, as individuals, to where the world is going. Conversations about the future of work and what I think and how I see things and how I see the world. So those are some of the conversations we had, and I thought that I would share this moment with all of you. And for those who were not there, you get to hear these conversations that we had. And so I hope you enjoy the launch. I hope you enjoy the conversations we had. I really just wanted to share this moment with you guys. So let me know in the comment section what you think about the launch and what you think about the conversations. I look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy! As time went on, when you buy a car and then you start seeing that particular mark of car everywhere, who has ever had that kind of experience? A car you never saw before, you thought, oh, this is probably, I'm the only one with this, and then you see it everywhere. Now, my experience was that when I got retrenched, every time I turn on the news, I would hear about retrenchment. Every time I turn on the radio, I would hear about retrenchment. And this is something that I was not paying attention to before retrenchment happened. So it was like, okay, what's happening? Is like everyone is getting retrenched? And what is driving retrenchment at the rate in which it's driving retrenchment? Those were the questions at the back of my mind, but why is this thing so rampant now? And so I went on the internet, I threw myself on the internet. The purpose of it was to satisfy my curiosity, like, okay, I just want to understand what is it that is driving retrenchment at this rate. So I went on the internet and I started researching. And for the first time, words like artificial intelligence jumped on me, and I had no clue what that was. Or robotics, automation, and the whole fourth industrial revolution jumped on me. I've never been paying attention to the tech industry. The only tech that I knew at the time would be to use my phone for calling or texting or sending emails on my laptop or using my laptop for work, as most people do. That was all I knew about technology, right? And I've never had any background or any interest in tech. But now, with this new experience that I'm having on the internet, I started writing about it on social media, just posting stuff around my findings and what I was discovering on social media. And then I discovered that more people were very intrigued about what is this that I'm finding out. I was like, okay, and then many people are asking me questions as though I was the expert on this, which I knew nothing about it. It gave me some sort of comfort that I was not the only clueless person about this, right? So I was like, okay, this is good, I'm not the only clueless person here. But nonetheless, the more clueless I was, the more I wanted to learn more. I'm a very curious person by nature. So the fact that I didn't know what artificial intelligence was, I'm like, I'm gonna find out the basics. I'm not gonna try to know how to build systems like he does, but I want to just understand what this thing is all about and how is it affecting work, And so I just kept digging and putting it out on social media. the response that I got from people made me start to blog about it, which was no longer a social media post. I was now writing in-depth articles about it. So I started a blog about it. And as time went on, I realized that I started having this thought like, I think someone needs to write a book about this. And in my wildest imagination, I didn't think that person would be me, because I just realized that a lot of people are so curious about this and everyone is intrigued about this topic. So I'm thinking to myself, I think someone needs to write a book about this. And it came to that point where I'm like, I look right and I look left and I don't see anyone else talking about this. So I felt like this is on you. And I immediately came up with 1,000 reasons, valid reasons why I cannot write a book, right? So I was like, no, I'm not educated, I don't have a degree, I'm not an academia by any stretch of imagination. How do I start writing a book? I'm not smart. I gave myself all of these reasons. I cannot even speak proper English. Like, my English is so broken that you need to pick the pieces and put them together for me to understand.
We disagree. And I know you could go on. You and I have sat and we've had.
But these are the thoughts in my head, literally.
No, I get it. And I understand that most people that are seen to be authors, right, are either from the academia or, I don't know. I mean, you beat me to it, right?
Exactly.
To write this book, and I've been thinking about it for years, right? So I'm a little upset, but I got over myself very quickly. But it's fascinating the journey that you've gone through, right? And you got responses on social media. You started writing a blog. I read your stuff as well, and people started following you. Like, you have millions of followers,
oh my God.
right? And it's true, right? If you guys follow Nicky on LinkedIn, like every time she posts something, she can post a pair of shoes, and she will link it to digital transformation. Like, it's ridiculous. And that's really admirable, right? Because the power of your voice and the image that you portray, especially for women in digital, is fantastic, right? And that's why I have nothing but time for you, and I guess everybody in this room has time for you too. When you wrote the book, when you finished the book, how did you feel?
Okay, when I finally discovered that the only person who will have to do this book thing is me, I made peace with that. It wasn't an easy journey to even accept that I will write the book. It tortured me for some time. It's like when an idea gets hold of you, it's either you do it or you become miserable. So that was my experience. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And so it evolved from those social media posts, blog articles into a book. That's why I tell people this thing happened by default. I didn't get it one morning and I'm like, okay, I wanna write a book. So I got to a point where when the book had gotten to a point where I'm seeing that this is now an actual book, right? Remember, I don't have a proper job. I don't have a job where you can expect that at the end of the month you have something coming in. So there was these ideas now in my head. Okay, now that I've accepted to do the book, how do I publish it? How do I get it out there? And at the back of my mind, I was like, okay, even if it's just to print one copy, without even it being proofread and done, worked on by professionals on it. I wanna print it and keep it in my room. One day I will show my kids that I wrote a book. That was the final decision I made when I tried. I've written to corporates about sponsorship. They said, "Oh, sorry, we don't do books, we do events." I'm like, okay. So I've knocked so many doors after I decided I'm writing the book. And it was not easy. I had no money, and trying to get sponsorship from corporate was a nightmare. Like every door I knocked was shut at me. And so I took the book one day. I went to Braamfontein. I still remember the whole incident. And I spoke to this guy. He's not in the house, but the big brother is here, Michael. I told Michael, I need to print this book. Michael's like, just one book? I'm like, yeah. He's like, we don't print one book. I'm like, I need to print this book. He said, and I insisted because we are sort of like family in some way. He was like, there's no way I'm going to get rid of her other than to print the one book. So he said, okay, there's a work I'm doing for someone. I'm going to attach your one copy to it so that we do it together because we cannot do one book. I'm like, okay, let's do this. So he printed the whole thing in its raw form, not edited, whatever, and left the papers on the table. And there was this guy that walked into the same printers that day. So he sat next to it and started flipping through. he was in the digital space as well. So he's like, wow, he's amazed. Like, then he asked the owner of the place, like, where is this from? It's like, oh, it's the lady there, it's her book, she wants to print it the way it is. Then he turned and looked at me, and I remember a statement he made. So before he started the conversation, now we started the conversation, and in just a few minutes of the conversation, he told me, okay, let me confess something. I thought you were a slave queen. Like, God in your sewing city. In my mind, I concluded that this is a slave queen who is here to eat this guy's money.
He's definitely not a friend you should have in life.
Thinking that I was there, the girlfriend to the owner of the printers. Meanwhile, I had my millions of problems in my head that I was sitting there with. So, but he told me that he's just flipped through these pages. This is a brilliant book. Why am I doing it in this state? It's like, this is relevant for our time. I told him, I don't have money. And the whole long story happened. Then he left that day. I left earlier because the conversation ended quickly. So I left earlier. When I came the next day to collect the book, because Michael told me to fetch it the next day, when I came the next day to collect my one copy, I wish I brought it, I would have shown you guys what it looks like in comparison to this. I didn't think about it. So Michael told me that guy left a number and asked me to call him. The book cannot be worked out in this way. So he left a number and I called him. He said he wants to introduce me to the people that finally printed my book, to some publishers. The next day, someone had just met the previous day. He asked to pick me up somewhere in town. And when I went there, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm being kidnapped here or whatever is happening. I managed to sneak his plate, register whatever on his car, and I sent it to a friend, and I got in his car. I'm like, okay, Lord, if this is the end of it. And he actually drove me to the people, the publishers, and introduced me, said, I met this lady yesterday, I flipped through her work, this is relevant. I don't know how you guys are going to do it, but this is it. And he left me there, he has never been back there. He left me with these publishers. That was it. We had a conversation a few days later, but the relationship was like 2 weeks. From the day I met this guy, we talked like 2 weeks like that. That was it. Without meeting him, I don't even think this book would have been out.
And here we are today.
And here we are today.
Let's give her a round of applause. Perseverance, persistence, passion. We can all take a page out of your book. Talking about pages in books, I've read this book a couple times, and for the avid readers in here, I've marked out with floppy pages, so don't shout at me, because I know how much you hate dog ears, they call it, right? The story about how I got the book?
Yeah.
Well, my wife got the book. My wife was at a women's function. I don't know what this women's function is, but anyway. She came back with this book, and I found it on the kitchen table, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, right? So I read it. And then I'm always curious. So I was like, I always find people's names on LinkedIn. My first port of call is LinkedIn, right? So I searched for her, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And she has natural hair. I wonder what she's doing, right? So I reached out to Nicky on LinkedIn, and then I realized that you also had a discussion with Strive. So I'm from Zim, right? And Strive, actually I know you're from Zim too, right? And Strive is one of is an inspiration for some of us that are from Zim, right? So my first thought was, you're from Zim, yeah, good man, good people. My first thought was, I'm going to get in touch with Nicky just so I can get an audience with Strive, right? Like I had a plan, right? And that plan...
First time revealing his plan.
So, it's true. So, and then all of a sudden I realized that, hang on, Nicky could possibly be more interesting than Strive. And I'm not just saying that, right? I'm not just saying that, like really. So, and I found it fascinating what her journey was, and I did some research. And so anyway, I said, random short story. But sorry for the dog ears. Your introduction, you talk about, in a world of fractured certainties, battered economies, and robotic invasion, you have to be clear as crystal about your own mandates and what matters to you most. Be brave enough to confront yourself with these uncomfortable questions, and I'll rattle them off, right? Is what I'm doing really my greatest calling in life? Am I tired, bored, and uncomfortable with what I do? Am I living life or just paying bills? Is there a soul deep purpose or dreams buried deep within me, longing for an escape? Is there a bolder, braver, smarter way I need to take to fulfill my purpose? Or am I stuck? Or am I pushing my own limits? When I read that, you know, I kind of wanted to, I don't know, cry. I'm a big boy, but I was like, man, I had to reevaluate like who I was, right? what does it mean for you? Like when you wrote that, like what were you thinking?
In my mind, it took me back to my own journey, right? Where I was in an environment where I cannot really say I absolutely love what I was doing. I was doing it because this is what everyone does. This is what we were told to do. Go to school, get a certificate, get a job.
Yeah.
But deep within, I was not really fulfilled or satisfied. So when the whole idea to put the book down, I thought these are some of the questions within me that I used to ask myself, and I had no courage to do anything about it. I felt like I was trapped in my own life. And somehow the retrenchment that happened, even though I cried because I was wondering how am I going to take care of my kids. But when it happened, I felt like this was some sort of liberation in some way. I felt liberated in some way. And so I wanted for people to also think within themselves, like what you are doing, is this really what you were born to do? Are you really fulfilled in this? And if I could go further now with the whole take and how it's disrupting, I would even add more questions in it, like the industry in which you are, how relevant is it going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Or the position in which you're currently occupying at work, can you be easily replaced by a machine? Can a machine do what you're doing? So those are some of the questions that I would even dive much more deeper into that. And for those that are students, ask yourself, the certificates I'm currently pursuing, when I graduate in 4 years' time, will it still be relevant for the market? Because people are just doing things without really asking themselves questions, without really thinking. I recently had a conversation with someone. He said, my mom said I should study accounting. Like, what is the future of accounting? To me, for us to be honest, there are softwares right now that can do accounting way better than any human accountant can. And as a parent, you're pushing your child to go do accounting because in your days, accountants were the thing, right? My son recently told me a story. He went to school one day, came back, he told me, he asked me a question. I wasn't sure where he was going with the conversation. He asked me, are lawyers very important people in society? I'm like, yeah, kind of. He asked me, judges, people judge in court, they're very important people in society. I'm like, yeah. He asked me another one again, was what? What was it? Do you still remember? It was like 3 questions he asked me, lawyers, judges, and engineers. So I asked him, okay, why are you asking me this? He said, because all the kids in his class want to be either lawyers, doctors, engineers, or judges. And for him, when the teacher asked him what he wants to be, he said he wants to be an animator. Am I right? And then everyone looked at him like... So he kind of felt like the real thing is being a lawyer, is being all of these things. So he had to come and ask me. And the reason he had not discovered up to that point that lawyers and accountants and engineers and these people are not the thing, because we've never had that conversation in the house. I've never pointed out to them that this is the real thing. I want them to become their own person. Let them discover it for themselves, If it's that I've been pushing him towards these fancy titles, he would not have been shocked to that point where everyone wants to become a lawyer, everyone wants to become a judge. So these are some of the questions that I would have dived in the age and time in which we're living. Are we just studying for certificate's sake, or are we questioning, these things? Is this your purpose? Is this what you were born to do? Are you happy with what you're doing? Is there a voice within you that you're pushing down? Like, stay quiet. Something you're supposed to do, right?
So I mean, when my first year at university, my dad was an economist. He was an investment banker, right? And I wanted to be exactly like him. So my first year of university, I did economics and finance. I absolutely hated it. So I changed my degree. It's what I decided to study, media. Why? Because I wanted to be on TV, and I was dead serious because I wanted to be on CNN, and I loved Anderson Cooper on CNN, right? I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he was my man, right? And thereafter, I got to understand what media does in the world, how it can influence society, and how your voice can have an impact on people's lives, right? With that, that's where I am. That's a long story. I'm sitting where I am today. But it's incredible that with your kids, you've given them an opportunity to delve into something different, right? And there is the old adage that accounting and ETC or finance will take you where you're supposed to go. And there probably is a place for all those professions. But giving your kids the opportunity to do what they want to do, I think is fantastic. And that's why I guess you wrote this book, and I hope you guys read it one day, because it's really inspirational. without getting too soppy, let's get into this book, right, and actually sort of dig deeper. The Rise of the Machines is chapter 1. How many of you guys have actually read this book? I got a show of hands. It's actually quite sad. All right, but you're here, so hopefully you're going to buy this book. All right, let's support Nicky, because I bought 2 copies, so sign both of them. All right. The Rise of the Machines, chapter 1. That's a fantastic title. All right. A growing number of people are becoming increasingly anxious about the future viability of jobs. Here we go. You know I picked this for a reason, right? Talking about jobs and artificial intelligence, and we've spoken about, we disagree, but I'm not even going to start with you. A growing number of people are becoming increasingly anxious about the future and viability of jobs as a result of these fusions of technology. This is the future we never saw coming, but the writing has been on the wall for quite some time. We were just not paying attention. Personally, me, Nicky, you, right? I know what job anxiety feels like because I was retrenched at the peak of my career, and you spoke about that. Now, when you talk about the future viability of jobs as a result of these fusions of technology, what is your take on job security, creation of employment, and the rise of the machines as titled in chapter 1? Give us a take.
Great question. I know we've had this conversation.
Yeah, I might walk out.
Please don't. You know, what I personally believe, just from looking at how the world is operating and how things are happening, right? Not from an industry perspective or from someone who is right in the middle of AI like you are, but just for me, starting from afar and watching things happen. So my own ideas and my own perspective is that the future is not going to be more of jobs as many people believe. Because right now, for example, a company that had, for example, say 50,000 employees, let's talk of your big international companies, that had like 50,000 employees 5 or 10 years ago, they are doing way better, half, if not 40% of that workforce. They have shrink down, and I see it's a trend that keeps happening, and it will keep going, because jobs that are being lost to machines, a job that is being lost to a pandemic, someone may recover it when organizations start recovering from the pandemic. But if someone loses their job to a machine, that train is not coming back. That job is not coming back, because the company is not going to get up tomorrow and decide, we're tired of these robots, we want humans back. That is the way I look at it, right? But with the pandemic happening and many people are losing their jobs and the economy starts booming back again, people may get some of those jobs back. But if the job loss is due to machines, I don't see how an organization decides tomorrow that, okay, we retrench, say 5,000 of our employees and automated the system. Now we're going to remove these automated systems and bring these 5,000 employees back. So that is why I look at the future of workers. It's not going to be what it's always been, even though they are very optimistic people in the room. But I look at it from a realistic point of view that this is not going to happen. More and more companies are shrinking their workforce and automating processes. So this is good. This is the trend. Nonetheless, it's not like the future is doomed. There are so many opportunities in the digital space that kids growing up now, people in colleges or graduates, can start looking at how, like disruption, of course, takes away a lot of opportunities from people, but it also brings more opportunities in the digital space. So for those that are creative and they can ask questions and they can be solution driven, they will be able to build systems that can, help them not rely on the government or not rely on the corporate world. So that is really my idea on the future of work. It's not going to be jobs as it has always been. Yes, AI will create more jobs that we don't even know what they will be yet, but it will not be as much as AI is going to destroy. That is my take on that.
I'm going to contradict you. In fact, you're going to contradict yourself. I'll tell you why. Page 37. Pick up the book if you haven't read it. Right? You talk about the bleak future of jobs. Yeah. I'll read a passage. Right? Artificial intelligence and robotics are new buzzwords. Okay. Advances in technology are forcing humans out of the workplace. Businesses are going digital. The world is going digital. Shopping is going digital. Banking is going digital. Marketing is going digital. Insurance is going digital. And even dating has gone digital, and much more, right? For those of you on Tinder, you giggled, good for you, right? With that said, right, if everything is going digital, how can there possibly be no jobs for those businesses that are going digital? I'm trying to understand, because I'm a big fan of creating employment in the digital space, right? Upskilling and giving people new opportunities, right? She hates it because she disagrees with me, right? So, but you rattle off a few industries that are going digital. They can't run themselves. What do you think it's going to look like in the next 20, 30 years from a people perspective, if everything that you mentioned in your book is going to go digital?
I love that question. And this is my take on that. When processes go digital, it means less employees. All right, let's take banking, for example. Most of us, I mean, like how many people go to branch these days to carry out banking transactions unless it's something really serious, right? So, but it never used to be like that before. Before, you have to go stand on those queues and talk to an actual human person to get certain things done. Now that you are doing it digitally, okay, maybe I should throw the question back at you. Now that it's being done digitally, right?
Oh, here we go.
Now that these processes we're doing them digitally, do you think the people that used to handle the same thing we're doing digitally are still in the bank?
That's a tough question, because I look at banking in a different way, right? When I think of the contact center, and you guys, I'm sure you run large contact centers, right? There's lots of people in there, and most of them probably would have will lose their jobs. But when you ring a contact center and you look at digital messaging channels, right? Those messaging channels cannot work on their own. You need a human on the back end to actually support, the high value interactions that are coming through. I can only give reference to what I do because it's relevant, right? So I believe that there is an opportunity for them, right? Because there'll always be customers that are asking questions. There'll always be customers that have queries. There'll always be customers that are pissed off because Tinder's not working, right? And they'll ring the contact center, right? And even if it's if they want to ask questions on a digital channel, there must be someone there to answer them on the other side, right? Even if there's an automation in front of it. But that's my view, and this is not about me. So don't make this about me. This is about you, right?
And the people,
That's not about us. But I mean, creating employment is a big thing for me, and I do agree that AI and robotics and a whole bunch of stuff and digital transformation is possibly or has taken away jobs, and some jobs won't return, right, because of COVID, unfortunately, right? But your book is titled. What does it say?
Disrupt yourself or be disrupted.
So I think it's upon you, and I think everybody else in here, to have discussions with people you know, right? And give them insight. That listen, you need to get up and do something about it, or be left behind. And that's how you create your own employment for yourself and employment for other people, right? So that's what I believe. But let's move on. Let's move on from that topic.
Before we move on,
go on, say something.
Before we move on,
say something.
Based on the fact, the point you bring that humans will still always be needed at the back end, even though things are being done digitally, right?
Yeah.
In the front end, 20 humans could be needed to handle certain processes, but at the back end, 2 out of those 20 will be needed to handle what is happening at the back end of the digital space.
That's fair.
That is the difference.
That's a fair point. And I can't argue with that. And there's a few yas and yeses in here. So I think you're onto something. Chapter 5. All right. And how are we doing for time, by the way? Exclusive books. Can someone tell us how we're doing for time?
45 minutes.
We're great.
Yeah.
We've got what, 45 minutes? Are we streaming live, by the way? We are. I can't swear. That's fine. Because Nicky does that to me. Like I've got very colourful words when she starts to say things we disagree with. Chapter 5. Paying attention to that nagging feeling. Right? A salary has aborted many dreams and slaughtered a great many more first-class talents. What do you mean?
I remember the war I had on social media when I posted this.
Yes.
So what I literally mean by that is the whole idea of at the end of the month you get something, and people are sitting with dreams, but because they know, when you're looking for a job, right, and you finally get the job, all it takes for you to be rewarded for that effort is 30 days, 25 days, and you're paid.
That's a fair point.
But once you decide that I'm going to chase my dreams, which you are, from what I know, you left your job at AXA, right?
Yeah, don't get me started.
And you're doing your thing right now.
Yeah.
Okay, but when someone is looking for a job, they get the reward. When they finally get the job, max is 30 days, they get the rewards. But you can start a business and in the next 5 years, I see she's smiling because she knows what I'm talking about. You can start a business and in the next 5 years, you are still hoping for the day you will actually relax and be like, oh, I finally can pay myself.
Yep.
So that is really what I mean by that, because this whole issue of salary, knowing at month end you're secured, has kept people from doing bigger things.
Yep.
People have settled for a tree when they were called to build a forest because of salary.
And you're not a tree, right? So move.
Not in that sense. They have planted a tree. They were meant to build a forest.
I get it, and I'm just adding on to it as well. Right? So, Nicky, I'm not that dumb.
I didn't mean it like that.
You've written a book, but I can hold a conversation right now. Can I get a mic, please? Can I get one of those roving mics? I have a question because someone smiled and they comment, and I want them to expand. Young lady, would you like to please tell us, right? Like what happened? You started your own business.
Yeah.
You left your job.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what happened? Go on.
Why I left the job or why I started?
Well, whatever you want to share.
Okay, so it's pretty similar to how she described how a salary kills dreams. I've always had a passion to start a business, obviously, which is why I went into it. But as an African, my dad is Tanzanian, my mom's Nigerian.
I love you already.
So the dream is to get an education and get a job. So that killed my entrepreneurship dreams very quickly. So that's the process that I'm currently in. I want to change it for the world. We've got 3 team members now. 2 years later, struggling and moving out of my apartment, starting sleeping on the couch in my brother's place for like a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm seeing a little bit more growth and I'm seeing an impact that I'm doing for my team, for myself, for my brothers, for my family in general, to actually realize that there's more to life than just being employed.
Wonderful. Disrupt yourself and be disrupted. How's that? I mean, that's a wonderful story. How do you know someone has a master's degree? I tell you, right? Always tell you. Someone has. I'm one of them. All right. Thank you for sharing that story. I think it's incredible that you're on this journey and you've disrupted yourself. And I hope your business succeeds. Again, I'm a big fan of women in tech and in business because we think men think we run the show. We actually don't. But it's always good. The greatest successes I've had are partnerships with women. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. Maybe I'm a bit of a charmer. But yeah, I think we all need to use our strengths to ensure that we actually do some good, right? And that's great. So thank you for sharing that story. All right. Let's move on. Chapter 11. Charity cannot cure poverty. I'm not even going to try and read. It's just like that's powerful, right? That's charity cannot cure. The solution to poverty is not charitable giving, but a major shift in mindset. The mind is where the revolution begins. Transformational thinking is the key requirement to fighting poverty. Poverty can be conquered if the masses can disrupt and reinvent their thinking. I can't even explain what that paragraph means to me in general, right? When we talk about charity cannot cure poverty. I mean, I come from Zim, but Zim's not that bad as people think it is. But there is poverty, right? As there is in SA, and charity doesn't cure poverty. I'm also the president of the Man United Supporters Club in Johannesburg. I just thought I'd throw that in there, right? And the only way we can become an affiliate. Hang on, let me finish my story. The only way we could become affiliated to Manchester United was if we did charitable things, right? So, and I know that charity cannot cure poverty, but the Greater Society believes it can. Why did you write that and put that in your book, especially in a book about digital transformation and disrupting it?
Okay, the first thing I want to clear up is that this book is more than just tech and digital transformation.
Yes, it is.
This is a life manual for anybody who wants to, challenge themselves and do big things in life. But the whole point of digital transformation is that we live in a digital era, and you cannot really do much in this time, in this age and time, without understanding the world around you. That is why the tech is very much at the forefront of the book. Now, back to your question, why I talk about charity cannot cure poverty.
Yes, please.
Right. I believe that the fastest way to kill creativity and innovation in any society is to feed them freebies. Okay. And
well said.
Personally, I am a product of, I don't want to call it charity, but I'm not here by myself. There are people that have supported me along the journey. All right. I have my family here in the house, Brother Kofi and his wife. They have been a great support to me. My sister sitting right here, she has been an amazing support to me. So I have not done this on my own. All right. So there are a lot of people that are not even in this room that have been behind me like, Nicky, go in one way or another. Corner sitting there is another great support. I appreciate you so much. But the whole point is that a lot of people sit back. Even though they get this help, they don't do anything with the help they get. They sit, they consume, and they wait for the next fix to come. I call it a fix. They wait for the next. They're like wheelbarrows. You push it and you leave it here. When you come next time, you find them where you left them and you push them forward again. So charity kills creativity and it destroys people's dreams. So I would rather you teach someone how to fish, give them a whole fish pond if you can, than giving them fish, which is what charity does, all right? The people in my life were not giving me fish. They were teaching me how to, even though there were times I needed the fish to eat. So that I don't starve to death. And they're handing me that fish, all right? But they were a great support system, like, Nicky, you can do this, all right? Because I'm thinking, I have, my eyes are on something. I want to get there, I want to get to that thing. But a lot of people that are relying on government and all of that, they don't have their eyes on anything other than the government. Yeah. They don't have their eyes on anything other than their mom. They don't have their eyes on anything other than their dad. They don't have their eyes on anything other than their big sister who is doing big things, and they're like, well, this is gonna sort me out, or big brother, or things like that. And that is where charity becomes detrimental. I'm not saying people should not help each other. I'm not saying we should not hand help where help is needed. I remember an example. One day I was out with the kids, and this woman came to ask me for money. She had a child, and she looked well dressed. She looked okay. Not that I didn't have the fiber she was asking for, but I said no. And then when we walked past, my son asked me, Mommy, why didn't you give her? And I responded, I was like, oh my God, these kids, like, questions they ask you. Then I had to explain to him, I was like, that could have been me. I could have taken that option. To take your sister, go around and beg. The world would have understood you were in a very bad space. She's not on a wheelchair, she looks very much okay, but she takes the child walking around and begging. I am not going to enable that behavior. That is the reason I did not give her the fibre. But then one time also we went out and there was someone, I can't remember the full story, we met a guy somewhere, we were going to get food, and this guy looked like a street kid, basically, let me put it that way.
Right.
So I asked him, can we get food for him? He said, yeah. So we all went to KFC together, and I bought food for my kids, and I bought a pack for that guy, and I handed it over to that guy. To show them the difference of that. I don't mean that you should not help people at all, but there are certain behaviors that you should not enable people to keep practicing that. So I'm not completely against the idea of helping people. I am a product of that. Without people helping me, I would not be here. But the point is that the help that some people receive, they don't do anything with it. They just sit behind. And I'm mostly against, the government programs that, leave these people on their own. Nobody's going to die. They will solve their own problems. I was at an event yesterday in Santin, and the moderator brought up something about a certain village, or whatever it's called, that has not had water for like 15 years, and they are blaming the government and all of that. Yeah. And I was like, isn't there someone in that particular community who is like, we're fed up with this, we're going to do this on our own, rather than waiting on the government? How long are we going to keep waiting on governments to solve all our problems for us? The government itself is struggling. They're drowning in debts. So these are some of the ideas. You read deeper into the book, you see these are some of the ideas that I talk about. Rather the government build development or community development, whatever they call it, within those communities and develop these people, teach them how to fish, right? Now that the world is being connected, build systems where these communities can be connected to the internet. Of course, there are those that will abuse the system, but some of them will build system out of that internet. They will discover innovations. They will discover things by being connected to the rest of the world, and they can solve their own problems rather than waiting on the government. But if the government says, no, everyone just sit there, everyone will give you 300 rands. We'll give you 300 rands. People are never going to go anywhere.
You can hear the passion in her voice, right? And this book is not just about digital transformation. Yes, Nicky, I've read it. So you don't have to keep telling me to read it. We're ready. Right? And there's life lessons as well, all right? I think for young people especially, if you guys have nephews, nieces, I don't know, young kids, friends who act like kids, share the book. Yeah, we've got plenty of those, right? Share the book with them, and they might get some inspiration out of it. This is an excellent resource for students, parents, and anyone tired of abusing their mental health with the effects of an unreliable economy, Africa and African countries. This message is clear and pushes you to realms of exploring your one's self-worth. The minute I started reading this book, I knew it was exactly what the world needs to hear. That's Alan Harris from New Orleans, in the US. Yeah. Nicky Bird has written the book we've been waiting for, and if you fail to read it, you're risking the outcome of your future. A book empowering the masses to escape the state of despair and the ever-changing tech world. That's Naliza from Cape Town. I was actually in Cape Town on the weekend. And going back to your charity discussion, there are a lot of people. Who's heard of District 6 in Cape Town? Yeah? Who's from Cape Town? Cape Town is an incredible place. Right? Now, people were displaced in District 6 back in the day. They had their houses taken away from them, and especially people of color and colored people. Right? And I've got a mate of mine who's in the digital space who got his house back after his parents had died, and they applied for it, and they've got this 2-bedroom apartment, and he refuses to move out of it because of that story. Right? So it was 6 boys packed in a 2-bedroom house for 4 days. And it was an incredible story, and we were just sharing stories about how we've our journeys in life, and I shared your book as well on the day. And we look at how we, from it being charitable, hasn't helped society to some degree. There's still a lot of poverty around some of those areas, right? And it's important to help someone to fish than to actually give them the fish and not be able to. Well, you can give them the fish, but if they want another one, show them how to do it, all right? Or else they'll keep coming back to a place where it's not going to be beneficial for their long-term growth, for a lack of a better phrase. Yeah? I've got one more question, right? And it's about decoding greatness. It's chapter 13, and you talk about are you funding your dreams or your lifestyle? Now, I read this and I had to ask myself, what's important to me? Am I funding my dreams or am I funding my lifestyle? Because I like things, right? I do. I mean, who doesn't? And if you work hard enough, you should be able to do what you want to do and give your kids what you want to do, what they want, right? So I asked myself the question when I read this paragraph, like, what am I actually doing? Am I actually in it for the people, or am I actually in it for myself? And I live by the mantra, and many of you follow me on LinkedIn, I live by the mantra to be the beacon of light that enables others to succeed. I live by that every day. If I haven't enabled someone to succeed or had a discussion with them, whether it's, I don't know, whatever it may be, here's a fish or here's a laptop or I don't know, whatever, right? Then I've failed myself and I've failed society. You wrote about this, and I was really interested to get your view. When you talk about many are drowning in their own resources while they wait for someone to help them, and we spoke about that. And one of the biggest obstacles to people with their dreams is a lack of funding. When you say a lack of funding, can people start a business if they don't have funding? I know we talk about the old adage, just start. But just starting is just starting, right? I get it. And I want to get your take on why you put this in your book. What did you mean?
When I say people, with dreams, one of the big obstacles people with dreams is lack of funding. That is to mean that people have these big dreams, right? And you ask them, why haven't you executed so far? These big ideas, why haven't you executed so far? A lot of people say, well, I don't have funding yet.
Okay.
And that is something I look at, I see it as an excuse of not doing something. I am an example of, if I could sit back, which I did try to sit back, and the universe and God connected me to this person that eventually got the book out, because I didn't have funding for the book as well.
Right.
But one thing I kept doing was that I kept writing the book. I knew I was as broke as the 10 Commandment Moses. Right? But I kept writing the book. I was like, I have to put it out there.
Right.
Now, for most people, they would have probably just said, well, I don't have money to publish a book. What's the point of writing? You see? So I talk about, when you go deeper on that particular chapter, you see I talk about being more resourceful. Focus on being resourceful rather than waiting for resources to come to you. And my focus at the time was building an audience online as I was writing this thing. People didn't know I didn't eat last night. People didn't know I'm repeating tea bag for my kids to have tea. They didn't know any of that, but I was building an audience online, getting them very curious about the book. For me, I believe that's being resourceful, right? And I believe that if I could have some influential people forward the book or write something about a book, you've seen most of them here. So I started contacting these people, even though I had no clue how the book was published. But I contacted these people, and the person you see the name here, I'm gonna tell you a quick story just now, Mr. Bonang Mohale. I had contacted a few influential people within South Africa and even out of South Africa to write a forward for my book, and I got doors slammed on my face. Trevor Noah's team was one of those. I called his manager and they were like, no. So I called Les Brown, for many people who follow him online.
Yes.
His team also shut the door at me. Lisa Nichols, motivational speaker in the US. This team also shut the door at me. So there were a couple of people within South Africa, I don't want to be naming names. But still, those were shot at me, right? So one day, I got up one morning and I'm sitting in my room so disappointed, and I switched on the TV reluctantly, and Mr. Bonang Mohale was on TV that morning. He was having an interview, I think on YouTube or something, and I caught the interview like 5 minutes to the end, but I was able to see the name that was written before it went up, because for those 5 minutes that I listened, whatever he was saying resonated with me so much. I was like, oh my God, I don't know who this person is, but I think I'm gonna try and shoot my shot to see if he can write a forward for my book, right? And that morning I remember my daughter asking me, Mommy, who break your heart? Why are you crying? I was in a state. That was like few days after the person in South Africa that I thought would write a forward said no to me, said no, we're not doing this. And I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, where do I start now? I thought this was it. Because I thought, even if my book is in a certain state, once people see an influential name on it, they will trust it, right? So I was like, let me try this guy on TV. I don't know who he is, never heard of Mr. Bonang before, but I quickly took the name from ETV and Googled it. Google is my friend. And Google, when I Google like things that, I was like, oh wow, this guy is way bigger than I thought. And his office is based in Santon.
Yes, it is.
If you want to write the next question first, I need to tell this story.
No, tell the story. I actually want to read a paragraph from Bonang's
okay,
previous.
you will read it.
I'll read it after you're done with the story.
Yes. So I got the number for his office. He was still with Business SA at the time, business leadership. So I got a number, I called the office. They said he was on holiday at the time. And he had gone for Christmas holiday. He doesn't work in December. I think they said the whole of December he does not work at all. I think I called him. I called him around 2nd or 3rd of December. They said he does not work in December at all. I'm like, is there a way you can just shoot him an email and requesting if you can write a forward for my book? I'm like, I just watch him on TV. They're like, yes, but he's not working in December. they were going to put me through to his PA. The PA told me the same thing. He's not working in December. We cannot contact him for anything relating to work.
Right.
Call us 7th of January. That was the next following year. That was 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. But the new year starts, offices opens on the 7th.
All right.
7 early in the morning. I think I was the first person to call that office after waiting for 1 month. I'm like, I can't wait. I called him. I'm like, you remember me? I called you last month and you said I should call. Like, yeah, I remember. What is it you want us to do for you? I sold the whole story, and she was like, okay, I will talk to my boss and I'll get back to you. Send me an email. So I sent an email. A few hours later, she got back to me and said, okay, I've discussed this with my boss, and he has said, yes, he was open to write the forward. I should send the e-copy of the book, which was still in its raw form. I quickly emailed it to her, but then I asked her, is it possible for me to meet him in person? She's like, but he has said yes, he's going to write the book. I mean, the forward. I'm like, no, I need to meet him in person. Like, he's fully booked until March. I was calling him, he's fully booked till March. Can you wait till March? Yes, I'm going to wait until March. So March 17th, I remember the date. I was booked for that day, and I had only 15 minutes.
My son's birthday.
I had only 15 minutes with him, and I walked into his office. This man came in, he's the most humble person I've ever met. He came with water, poured into my arm, like literally trying to stop him from serving me. Like, no, you're in my house, sit down. Like, okay, we had a conversation. He asked me where I was from, what the book is about. I explained, and then he asked me a question, like, when is the book coming out? Like, I don't know. I have no
What was
clue.
his response?
No, when I said I don't know, he looked at me like, but you came for me to write a forward. I'm like, yes. When is the book coming out? Exactly. I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, well, why don't I know? Then I explained I've had a quote from my publisher. This is what it's going to cost. This is the percentage they want you to pay first. And at the time I was running a crowdfunding campaign. That was my last bus stop. You know what the last bus stop is? I was like, okay, I'm running this crowdfunding campaign. Hopefully I can raise 20% of what the publisher, that guy introduced me to. Remember the India story?
Yes.
To pay them before they start the work, because they asked me for a certain percentage to start the work. So I was doing the crowdfunding campaign to do that. And in my head, I'm hoping, okay, maybe if he hears about this crowdfunding campaign, he can put a few thousand on it to push the thing to go forward, right? Really, in my head, that's what I'm wishing. He's like, so how's the crowdfunding campaign going? I'm like, it's not going well. It's like, okay, how much did your publisher, what's the quote your publisher gave you? It was money I was scared to call. Like, he literally dragged the amount out of my mouth, right? And I eventually told him how much the publisher had charged for everything, including the production and the first batch of print. It's like, tell the publisher to send me an invoice. I'm like, I didn't hear him. It's like, tell the publisher to send me an invoice. I literally broke in tears in his office.
Amen.
It's like, you must have
That's your story.
So literally, that is how the book came out. I went to ask for a forward. Honestly, I did not go to ask him for money. And I looked at him, I'm like, sir, but you don't know me. This is the first time.
Yes.
He's like, this 15 minutes you spend is enough for me to know you are worth investing in. That was what he told me.
Now, Nicky, let me read what Rwanda says, right? As Nicky mentions in her book, there are no longer gatekeepers blocking your way to success. Technology has broken barriers and made things easy for everyone. The internet is an equal opportunity for everyone, and smart people are using it to create spotlight for themselves. The number of digital startups, online courses, and internet celebrities has exploded in recent years, and many people are becoming rich and influential due to the power of the internet. He also goes on to say, what I like about Nicky Bird and her book is that you can tell she comes from a roller coaster of struggle. She understands the journey of personal disruption. After being retrenched, she felt dejected, hopeless, yet she chose her own path to success without knowing the outcome. She boldly took a leap of faith into the unknown, and today you can read a mind-transforming book that came as a result of her own personal disruption. Each page will encourage you to leave behind what you're familiar with and to look at the world through fresh lens, one that turns assumptions and conventions upside down. Now, I can understand why he was quite happy to give you a forward, because I think it's been incredible. I mean, for me, to sit here with you and launch your book, that's an absolute honor. and a privilege. And I can only wish you all the success. We look forward to the second book. I know I asked you, have you started? She actually has started. So she's going to write 2 books. Why even write 1? I need to reevaluate my life goals. And I think it's really incredible that you've been able to share your story. This book is not just about digital transformation. It includes 25 business ideas and nuggets to create your own economy. It's got a forward button now. Yeah, I don't have any more I can say, and that I'm really grateful that I can sit on this stage with you. And for those of you online, if you're watching, buy the book. Like, it's not much, right? Probably cost you a couple of beers with your mates on the weekend. So do that. And for those of you guys in the room, I'm sure you've got some questions. I'll give you the opportunity to ask Nicky some questions. But thank you very much for sharing the journey. Absolutely inspirational, and I wish you all the success. Thank you, Bird, everybody.